Infidelity is common in the emergency room. It's almost boring. We see the late-night texts flashing on the patient's phone, the mismatched perfume on their collar, the frantic lies told to spouses about working late. Usually, it ends in screaming, security being called, and a messy divorce. But in room 402, on a foggy Tuesday night, the collision of a wife and a mistress didn't end with a scream. It began with a silence so heavy, it felt like it could crush your ribs. My name is Mary. I work the night shift, and I thought I had seen the absolute worst of human nature. I was wrong. The patient, Mr. Thomas Reed, a wealthy architect, had been brought in from a single-car crash on a remote highway. He was critical. By his side, crying tears that ruined her expensive makeup, was Amber, his 24-year-old mistress. She was holding his hand as if her life depended on it. Then the door opened, and Mrs. Vanessa Reed walked in. She didn't look like a wronged wife. She looked like an executioner in a Chanel suit. She held a bouquet of white lilies, funeral flowers, and stood at the foot of the bed, staring at the man who cheated on her. When Thomas woke up and saw the two women framing his bed, he didn't have a panic attack about being caught. He had a psychotic break of pure terror. He looked at his wife. Then he grabbed my arm with a grip that left bruises and whispered a confession that made me realize the accident wasn't an accident, and the woman with the flowers shouldn't be standing there. Thomas Reed arrived at 2:14 a.m. The paramedic said his BMW had gone off the road on Route 9, down an embankment and hit a tree. Route 9 is a desolate stretch of road. No lights, no houses. It's where teenagers go to drink and where people go to hide things. He had multiple fractures, a collapsed lung, and a severe concussion. He was unconscious, smelling faintly of expensive leather and fear. 10 minutes after he arrived, Amber burst through the ER doors. She was young, beautiful, and completely hysterical. She was wearing a cocktail dress and heels that were inappropriate for a hospital at 3 a.m. "Where is he? Where is Thomas?" she screamed at the triage nurse. "Are you family?" I asked, stepping forward. "I am his fiancé," she lied, the hesitation obvious. "We were on the phone. I heard the crash. Oh my God, is he dead?" She pushed past me toward the trauma bay. We let her in. Sometimes it's easier to manage the hysteria if they can see the patient. She threw herself onto the side of his gurney, sobbing into his shoulder. "Thomas, baby, wake up. I'm here. Amber is here." She was reckless with her affection. She didn't care who saw. She kissed his forehead, stroked his arm, whispered things that made it very clear she wasn't his sister or cousin. "He was coming to see me," she sobbed to me while I was hanging a new IV bag. "He said he had to take care of some business first, and then he was coming to my apartment. We were going to run away together tomorrow." Run away, the classic fantasy of the other woman. We stabilized Thomas and moved him to room 402 in the ICU. Amber refused to leave his side. She sat in the chair, holding his hand, her mascara running down her cheeks in black rivers. Then, at 4:00 a.m., the charge nurse called me to the desk. "Mary," she whispered, looking nervous, "we just got a call from the police. They identified the patient from his license plate. They notified his next of kin." "His wife?" I asked. "Yes, Mrs. Vanessa Reed. She's on her way." I looked toward room 402. Amber was still there, cooing over Thomas. "This is going to be a disaster," I muttered. I signaled for security to be on standby near the elevators. We waited for the explosion. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. Vanessa Reed stepped out. She wasn't what I expected. I expected a frantic, disheveled woman in pajamas, woken by a terrifying phone call. Vanessa looked like she was heading to a board meeting. Her blonde hair was perfectly coiffed in a sleek bob. Her clothes were immaculate. Her face was composed, almost expressionless, like a porcelain mask. But the most unsettling thing was what she was carrying. A large, perfectly wrapped bouquet of white lilies. Lilies. The flowers most commonly associated with funerals. The flowers that symbolize the restored innocence of the soul at death. She didn't ask where her husband was. She didn't ask if he was alive. She walked straight to the nurse's station. "Room 402, she said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of destination. Her voice was cool, low, and smooth like polished stone. "Mrs. Reed," I said, walking around the desk to intercept her. "Before you go in, I need to prepare you. Your husband is stable, but he has severe injuries and there is someone in the room with him." She stopped. She looked at me with eyes that were a startling icy blue. There was no surprise in them, no pain. "I know," she said. "Amber," she knew the name. "I assume she is crying," Vanessa added dryly. "Yes, ma'am." "Good. She is very good at performance art." Vanessa stepped around me and walked down the hall. Her heels made a precise rhythmic click, click, click on the linoleum. I followed her closely, hand near my radio, ready to call security the moment the screaming started. Vanessa opened the door to room 402. Amber looked up, eyes red and puffy. When she saw Vanessa, she froze. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The color drained from her face. She looked like a child caught stealing from the cookie jar, but 1,000 times worse. Amber let go of Thomas's hand as if it were on fire and scrambled back into her chair, trying to make herself small. Vanessa didn't look at Amber. She didn't acknowledge her existence. She walked to the foot of the bed. She stood there, tall and imposing, holding the lilies like a weapon. She just stared at her unconscious husband. The silence in the room was absolute. The only sound was the rhythmic whoosh of the ventilator Thomas was on to help his breathing. It was terrifying. Screaming, I can handle. Throwing things, I can handle. But this cold, calculated silence, it felt predatory. I want to pause here. We often think of betrayal as a fiery, emotional event, but Vanessa Reed showed me that the deepest rage is ice cold. If you were in her shoes, walking into that room, what would you have done? Would you have screamed? Would you have attacked the mistress? Or would you have done what Vanessa did? Stand there like an avenging angel, waiting for the sinner to wake up? Let me know in the comments. An hour passed. The tableau remained frozen. Amber cowering in the chair. Vanessa standing at the foot of the bed like a statue. Me watching from the corner, documenting vital that was steadily improving. Around 5:30 a.m., Thomas began to stir. The sedative was wearing off. His eyelids fluttered. He groaned, a deep, guttural sound of pain. "Thomas," Amber whispered, leaning forward slightly, desperate for reassurance but terrified of the woman at the end of the bed. Thomas opened his eyes. They were hazy at first, unfocused. He blinked, trying to clear the fog of anesthesia. He looked to his left. He saw Amber. A weak, pained smile touched his lips. "Amber," he croaked. His voice was rough from the intubation tube that had just been removed. Amber started to cry again, relieved. Then Thomas moved his gaze. He looked down towards his feet. He saw the lilies first, the white petals standing out against the drab hospital blankets. Then he looked up. He saw Vanessa. The reaction was instantaneous and violent. The monitor went crazy. His heart rate jumped from a steady 80 to 160 in seconds. Beep, 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 beep. Thomas tried to sit up, thrashing against the pillows, ignoring the pain of his broken ribs. His eyes went wide, bulging out of his head. His face turned a ghastly shade of gray. He wasn't looking at an angry wife. He was looking at a ghost. "No," he gasped, hyperventilating. The breath hitched in his throat. "No, no, no." He pointed a trembling, bloodied finger at Vanessa. "You," he choked out. "You can't be here." Vanessa didn't move. She didn't blink. She just stared at him with those icy eyes, holding the funeral flowers. "Why not, Thomas?" she asked. Her voice was calm, almost conversational. It was terrifying. "I'm your wife. Shouldn't I be here?" "Get away!" Thomas screamed, a high-pitched sound of pure terror. He pressed himself back against the headboard, trying to escape through the wall. Amber looked confused. "Thomas, what's wrong?" "It's just Vanessa. She knows. It's okay." "But shut up!" Thomas yelled at Amber. He looked at me desperate. "Nurse!" he yelled. "Nurse, help me!" I rushed to the side of the bed. "Mr. Reed, calm down. You're going to rip your stitches. Your heart rate is too high." He grabbed my scrub top. His hands were shaking uncontrollably. He pulled me down so close our noses almost touched. His breath smelled of fear and stale blood. "You have to get her out of here," he whispered frantically, his eyes darting back to Vanessa. "Sir, she is your wife. She has a right to be here. No, you don't understand, Tilly, he pleaded, tears mixing with the sweat on his face. She's not real. She can't be real. I thought he was having a drug-induced hallucination. It happens with head trauma and strong painkillers. Mr. Reed, it's the medicine talking. That is your wife, Vanessa. She is standing right there. No. He squeezed my arm harder. Listen to me. I know she isn't real. How do you know, Thomas? He leaned in even closer, so only I could hear the whisper that came from the deepest pits of hell. Because I killed her, he whispered. The world stopped. The beeping monitor, the distant hospital noises, everything faded away. I stared at him. What? Last night? He hurried on, the words tumbling out like vomit. Before the crash. At the house. We fought. About Amber. She knew everything. She was going to take the money. All of it. He gulped for air. I pushed her. Down the stairs. I heard her neck snap. I checked. She was dead. No pulse. Nothing. I looked over my shoulder at Vanessa. She was still standing there, statue still, watching him. I panicked, Thomas continued, crying now. I put her in the trunk of the BMW. I drove out to Route 9. I dug a grave in the woods, near the old mile marker. I buried her. I buried her deep. He looked at the woman at the foot of his bed with abject horror. So tell me, nurse, he hissed, how can she be standing there holding those damn flowers if she's under 6 feet of dirt? My blood ran cold. This wasn't a hallucination. This was a confession. I slowly pulled away from him. I needed to get out of that room. I needed to call the police. Not for a domestic dispute, but for a murder. But then, I looked at Vanessa again. If he killed her, who was this? A twin sister? A doppelganger? Or had Thomas botched the job so badly that she had crawled out of a shallow grave and driven herself to the hospital to haunt him? No, that was movie stuff. I looked closely at Vanessa. There wasn't a scratch on her. No dirt under her nails. No sign of a struggle or a resurrection. She was perfect. Then Vanessa smiled. It was a small, chilling smile that didn't reach her eyes. She raised the bouquet of lilies slightly, as if offering them to him. Guilt is a powerful drug, isn't it, Thomas? Vanessa said softly. Thomas screamed, a primal, broken sound. He covered his eyes with his hands, sobbing uncontrollably. Get her away, get her away! I backed out of the room slowly. I went to the nurse's station. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely dial. Get the police, I told the charge nurse. Homicide, now. The police arrived in 10 minutes. 2 detectives, followed by uniforms. They didn't go into the room at first. They listened to my statement. They listened to the recording I had started on my phone halfway through Thomas's confession, a habit I picked up years ago. They went into room 402. Thomas was curled in a fetal position, still crying. Amber was huddled in the corner, looking horrified. She had heard the confession too. Her lover wasn't just a cheater, he was a murderer. And Vanessa was sitting calmly in a chair, the lilies resting on her lap, talking to a detective. He confessed, the detective told me later in the hallway. We have units out on Route 9 right now, searching the area he described near the mile marker. But I don't understand, I said, looking through the glass at Vanessa. If he killed her, who is she? The detective smirked. There, he said, is Mrs. Vanessa Reed, alive and well. But he said he snapped her neck, he buried her. He thought he did, the detective explained. According to Mrs. Reed, they did fight. He did push her down the stairs. She was knocked unconscious. When she woke up, she was in the trunk of his moving car. My jaw dropped. She had a cell phone in her pocket, the detective continued. She called 911 from the trunk. She kept the line open. We tracked the GPS. We were following him on Route 9. He must have realized he was being tailed, panicked, and crashed the car before he could get to the burial site. So he never buried her? No, we pulled him out of the driver's seat. And we pulled her out of the trunk. She was bruised, terrified, but alive. The detective looked at Vanessa with grudging respect. We took her statement at the station. She was remarkably composed. When we told her he was in the ICU, she asked if she could see him. We advised against it, but she insisted. She said she needed closure. So she came here, I whispered, realizing the brilliance of it. She knew he thought she was dead, the detective said. She knew what seeing her would do to him. She staged her own haunting. The lilies were a nice touch. She hadn't come to comfort him. She hadn't come to yell. She had come to terrify him into a confession that no lawyer could ever take back. Thomas was arrested in his hospital bed. He was charged with attempted murder, kidnapping, and a laundry list of other crimes. Amber, the mistress, was questioned and released. The last time I saw her, she was walking out of the hospital alone, the fantasy of running away completely shattered. And Vanessa. She walked out of room 402 after Thomas was cuffed. She handed the bouquet of lilies to me at the nurse's station. "You can have these, Mary," she said calmly. "I don't like lilies. They remind me of death." Then she straightened her Chanel jacket, walked to the elevator, and left. Thomas Reed thought he could bury his problems. He didn't realize that some wives don't stay buried. They come back, and when they do, they don't bring forgiveness. They bring flowers, and they watch you dig your own grave with your words. I put those lilies in a vase at the nurse's station. They lasted for a week, a beautiful, chilling reminder of that night. Thomas Reed is currently serving 30 years. Vanessa Reed divorced him, took everything that was left, and moved to Europe. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How well do you really know the person sleeping next to you? And if push came to shove? Literally, would they call for help, or would they get a shovel? If this story gave you chills, or if you just admire Vanessa's cold-blooded style, do me a favor. Hit that like button. It helps us share these dark truths. Share this video with someone who loves a good thriller. And if you want more stories from the place where secrets come to die or come back to life, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. I'm Nurse Mary. Keep your eyes open, and I'll see you on the next shift. Bébé de Liege.